This episode of The Witch Wave is brought to you by Snowy Owl Arts and Tea House. Snowy Owl Arts and Tea House, nestled in Buffalo's historic Niagara Food Terminal, is a haven of creativity and warmth. Serving as the creative and production hub for Snowy Owl Tea, known for its handcrafted blends infused with real fruit, fresh ground whole spices, and full-leaf teas and blossoms. Snowy Owl Arts and Tea House is also home to the creative endeavors of resident artist and owner Tara Bystron-Pruski. Now, I adore Snowy Owl Tea, which is why I've partnered with them on the Witch Wave tea blend available from our site, but you can get their other tea blends directly from them, and I highly recommend you do. I'm addicted to their Midnight Moon blend with lavender, vanilla, and Earl Grey, as well as their second breakfast blend with lemon, oat, and poppy seed. I'm telling you, it is so good. Visit Snowy Owl in person or order their delicious teas online at snowyowltea.com and use code WITCH for 10% off. That's snowyowltea.com with code WITCH. This episode of The Witch Wave is brought to you by Wheel of Fate in Edinburgh, Scotland. At Wheel of Fate Witch Shop, you can learn to make your own besom broom, bind a spell book, or spin wool into yarn. There you can find local art inspired by heritage crafts, the natural world, and regional myths and folklore. At Wheel of Fate, they believe that there is magic in the creative arts, and they want to share that magic with you. Visit wheeloffate.co.uk to book a workshop or to learn more about their new location. The Witch Wave is brought to you by Wiser Books. Wiser Books has been publishing esoteric and occult teachings from around the world since 1957. Wiser specializes in a wide range of topics, including astrology, tarot, witchcraft, magic, Eastern thought, and Western mystery traditions. Wiser Books authors include Teresa Reed, Amy Blackthorne, Rachel Pollack, Mary Kay Greer, Lon Milo Duquette, Stephanie Rose Bird, Judica Illes, Courtney Weber, Cindy Brannon, Lilith Dorsey, and many more, and you probably recognize several of those names because they've been guests on The Witch Wave. Some of the most important titles published by Wiser include 78 Degrees of Wisdom, The Wiser Tarot, Hecate, Understanding Aleister Crowley's Thoth Tarot, Italian Folk Magic, Existential Kink, Tarot for the Hard Work, Queering the Tarot, Entering Hecate's Garden, Heal the Witch Wound, A Tea Witch's Grimoire, Backwoods Witchcraft, Mexican Sorcery, the Marie Laveau Voodoo Grimoire, and so many more. Visit www.redwheelwiser.com to shop their full collection and use code WAVE30 at checkout to receive 30% off your order. And don't forget to sign up for their awesome newsletter to receive discounts, updates about new titles, special collections, and more. Again, that's www.redwheelwiser.com and use code WAVE30 for 30% off.
The world is filled with bewitching people, and you might be one too. Welcome to the podcast where art is magic is real, and reality is stranger than dreams. I'm Pam Grossman, and this is The Witch Wave.
Hello and welcome to the Witch Wave. My lovelies, I have a spectacular show for you today with the rock goddess Melissa Maur. Now, she played bass for such legendary 90s bands as Hole and the Smashing Pumpkins, though as you'll hear, that's all only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to her creative output. But before we begin all of her story, if you'll indulge me, I want to share an incredible experience that I had last week and which feels kind of related to my conversation with Melissa, if you'll stick with me. Okay, so I was invited by the Tony Award-winning Broadway director Sam Pinkleton to do a private ritual for the upcoming Broadway production of the Rocky Horror Show. Now, how Sam even found me and came up with this idea is a story unto itself, and Sam is likely going to be on this show at some point, and when he is, we'll get into all of those details and how all of the stars aligned. But let's just say I had already loved his work. Some of you already know he is the director of Oh Mary. That's what he won the Tony for. And that show is one of the best things I've ever seen. So when I learned that he was directing Rocky Horror at Studio 54, no less, I was just over the moon as a fan because I've loved Rocky Horror since I was a teenager. It had a profound influence on me as a witchy little weirdo growing up in suburban New Jersey and longing for a bigger life full of art and magic and subversion of all stripes. And so I can't think of a better person to bring it back to Broadway than Sam. But anyhow, when he reached out to me last October, I was already excited about this production and was planning on getting tickets, so you can imagine how thrilled I was to receive this invitation. And of course, I said yes to him on the spot. Cut to this past Tuesday, March 10th, when I found myself gathered with Sam and Rachel Dratch and Juliette Lewis and Stephanie Hsu and so many other incredible talents in a circle in front of an altar at Studio 54. Now, the ceremony we did together had lots of sections. There was a blessing of the space. We banished negative energies and entities. We invited in supernatural support from ancestors and many, many other rituals and intentions and magical moving parts. But I knew that one thing we had to do was to invoke Dionysus, the Greek god of theater and ecstasy and disinhibition. And when I invoked him, my own energy shifted so intensely. I got really loud and found myself using my voice in these really theatrical, dramatic, and super weird, playful ways. And now remember, I was doing this in front of some of the best performers in the world, and yet I didn't feel self-conscious in the moment at all because it felt like he, Dionysus, was coming through me. We were collaborating, and I just felt filled with and transformed by this freeness, this spirit of wild abandon. Calling in Dionysus at Studio 54, this legendary space of wild abandon, to say the very least, and doing it on behalf of this show, Rocky Horror, which is all about freedom and freakiness and fantasy. Well, what can I say? It was one of the most pleasurable and powerful experiences I've ever had in the context of ritual. And the participants really seemed to connect with it and respond to that energy. It was just such a joy. And I bring this all up now today, not only to share this awesome, meaningful experience of magic with you, but because even though he's usually associated with theater, I think that Dionysus is also one of the primary gods of rock stars, of people who get on stage and have the ability to channel this primal, intoxicating, rhythmic energy, and then transmit this vibration to the audience through sound and motion and spectacle. And a lot of times when people talk about Dionysian rock stars, they talk about front men like Jim Morrison or Robert Plant or Mick Jagger. But in fact, that Dionysian energy has also been tapped into so many incredible front women. And perhaps the most Dionysian of them all is Courtney Love of the band Hole. And one of the things I loved talking to Melissa Maur about was about what it was like to, at first, be the collaborator with that wildly intense, yes, at times destructive, but also super creative energy as Courtney Love's bandmate. And then later, what it was like for Melissa to learn how to harness some of that power and energy on her own terms in other bands and other projects. So, all hail Dionysus! All hail Melissa Maur, and let's get ready to rock. But before we get to that, first, let's check and see what's come through on the Witch Wire.
Who is it?
Witches!
Hi, Pam. My name is Beth, and I am voice memoing you from Appalachia, where I'm from in eastern Kentucky, but live in Lexington, Kentucky now. And I'm a huge fan of the Witch Wave and of you and your work. And, I guess my question is about magical libraries, or a witch's library, or the importance of curating a library of your own. The past year, I feel like I've really gotten a very good start on my own little occult library, and I just treasure it, and it's so fun curating it and having so many books. And so I just thought I would, ask, what are some things you think about the importance of kind of having our own library and ways we might bless it and use it, or how witches have used books and reading and study and libraries throughout history, and also for those of us who have the means and priority of building our own library, and how we might share that library with other people. I'm also thinking about how I might dedicate my library to other witches in Appalachia, and especially those who are younger than me. So any thoughts you have on this topic, I would love to hear them, and I hope I make it to the Witch Wire. Thank you.
Hi, Beth. Thank you so much for your question and your lovely comments. And you are hitting on one of my favorite topics as a book lover myself. So first, I just want to acknowledge that so many magical people like us start off because they encountered a book that lit them up inside. Maybe it was a book of fiction, like for me, Wise Child by Monica Furlong, or maybe it was The Wizard of Oz, Or maybe it was a spell book that was stumbled upon in what I often refer to as the low end of the Dewey Decimal System. You know, the place where all the tasty books on witchcraft and UFOs and dream interpretation are shelved. But whatever it is, it was our intuition, and I don't know, maybe divine intervention, that brought us to those books, or brought those books to us, and which sets us on our path of reading and research and reverie. And so a lot of times people ask me for book recommendations, and believe me, I have plenty of those. I even have a little list of some of my recs in the FAQ over on witchwavepodcast.com. Though come to think of it, I really need to update it, but at least it's a start. But anyhow, regardless of what I or someone else might recommend, I think it's so important for a magically minded person to follow their own specific thread of study and to trust that whatever books call to them are the right books. To, yes, follow the trail of cosmic breadcrumbs, as I so often say, because one book will inevitably lead you to the next and the next and the next in this very organic way. And another thing that is often said about being a witch is that there is no pope of witchcraft, and there is no one book that all witches must read or follow. And that's one of the most liberating aspects of our craft, that no one's path looks the same. And while there are certainly classic books and texts that I can recommend or personal favorites of mine, there really is no official curriculum to follow. And I find that to be really exciting and freeing. However, I also know that some people still feel like they need a little bit of assistance when it comes to finding the right books or building their magical library. And there is actually an angel that I write about in Magic Maker who is known as the Library Angel. This angel's name is Harahel or Herochiel. And according to Kabbalistic lore, this angel guides the reader to exactly the right material that they need for their project or for their own self-development. They kind of are the oracle of books. I first learned about this angel in an essay called A Writer's Guide to the Library Oracle and Its Angel, which was written by librarian Justin Patrick Maur. Anyhow, why not ask Herochiel or another entity or deity that you connect with to help you build your magical library, to help lead you to the books that will best illuminate your personal path? And I also love the idea that you mentioned of your library being one that you possibly share with others. So speaking of Sam Pinkleton again, the director of Rocky Horror and Oh Mary, he has a practice of having a little library in the rehearsal room for his shows. And so for the Rocky Horror show, in the rehearsal room, he brought in some of his favorite books that he thought might inspire the cast and crew. I was very honored, yes, that Magic Maker is in that Rocky Horror rehearsal room library. And other members of the production are encouraged to bring in their books so they can kind of trade with each other. And P.S., let me just say, this library of his was literally in a cardboard box. So this doesn't have to be some fancy, expensive fixture. It can be scrappy and temporary and portable. So however you choose to build your library, trust yourself, trust your path, and trust the library angel to lead you to precisely the right books for you and your community at this time. Now, on to my guest. Melissa Oftermauer was born and raised in Montreal, Canada. She is an acclaimed musician, photographer, curator, and producer, best known as the former bassist of rock bands Hole and the Smashing Pumpkins. In 2010, she co-founded Basilica Hudson, a multidisciplinary art center in Hudson, New York, where she now lives. Her new book, which covers those heady rock star times in the 1990s, is called Even the Good Girls Will Cry. And it came out yesterday, March 17th, which also happens to be her birthday. So, happy birthday and happy book day, Melissa. And it makes sense that this book is in such cosmic alignment for her because throughout the book, she talks about her lifelong relationship with magic, dreams, and following the divine signs and synchronicities, which led her to making music around the world with some of the greatest rock legends in history. And she is certainly a legend herself. Melissa joined me in person in our Brooklyn studio, and you can watch the video of our conversation over on my YouTube channel, which is at Phantasmophile. Melissa Oftermauer, welcome to the Witch Wave.
You were one of the first podcasts, and I don't listen to podcasts, that I poked the PR team of, find this lady.
I'm so honored. Thank you so much. Was it the witchiness that appealed
Definitely
to you?
the witchiness and my determination to get the witchy thread of my book out into the world, knowing that there's other themes in the book that would dominate it.
Yes.
That would be hard to weave my way into the witches, but it's throughout the book. And there's not as many podcasts for the topic, so you were on the top of the list. And thank you for covering this on the airwaves.
Gosh, I'm so thrilled to do it.
Yeah.
So I did not gush over you when you first arrived, but I'm a huge fan of yours. I've loved you for such a long time, including your solo albums.
Oh, excellent.
So it's a real
Thank you.
joy to get to talk to you.
Thank you.
And so I would have been like first in line to get your new book anyway. This is Even the Good Girls Will Cry. But getting to do it under this sort of framework was like extra delicious because I could really like dive in deep. So let's start there. What made you want to write this book at this time?
So even though I'm somebody who does not buy in nor believe in the construct of time, or I believe it to be a human construct to just, frame things that are unframable.
Sure.
But I do tend to adhere to time in order to function within the humans.
As one must.
And everything, even within music, within bass playing, song arrangements. But I also have noted I work in decades. I work in big sweeping decades. And the book is an ode to the decade that defined me and my generation, 91 to 2001.
Hell yes.
And as I was approaching the third decade since the beginning of my awakening of must make music, it's my way to connect with human race, I just felt a percolating of, oh shit, I've got to get this out. And I got to participate in the dialogue back out in the public, the real world, or whatever this world is that I had hibernated and I had gone into motherhood. I had gone into local tiny scale living. And I just started feeling it bubble up. And then it would make sense at the moment I arrived to 2026. It is the quarter century moment of the beginning of my story. And I think that a quarter century is exactly enough time to have detachment, historic perspective, as well as objectivity, and enough time to possibly heal the wounds that are too painful to look at dead on when they're close.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So a quarter century is a perfect, healthy amount of time. And it was just my inner clock that started rumbling, and I was about to turn 50, and it turned into this necessity for my body, my daughter, the people who follow women in rock, the people who follow dreams and try to connect the dots of their lives. There was like many, many layers to why I wanted to, but it was the when all kind of lined up at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I believe in divine timing, and it seems like you do too. You're also somebody who it's clear you kind of follow your own intuition. You follow a lot of signs, symbols, synchronicities, dreams. The structure of this book is so interesting because, yes, it's somewhat linear. You start in your childhood. You take us through your time as a teenager and then your 20s being a rock star. But you punctuate it by these dreams that were really significant to you and your life and that clearly have given you some guidance.
Yeah.
And you also write a lot about following intuition. So why don't we start with the dreams? Why was it important to you to give us the rooting of these 3 specific dreams that you include in the book?
Well, first of all, the dreams, 2 of the 3 happened during the course of a year that I call the hauntings, when I was 19, when I started receiving messages. And as a young woman who had never read science fiction, despised horror movies, I'd accidentally watched The Shining once, and I am not looking for scary things. I do not want them, actually. A series of things happened in my nighttime life that made it impossible for me to deny that there was something trying to come through. So to tell this story was impossible without the intervention that happened, but in particular, one of the 3 dreams, which pretty much told me I had to make music and that music would be the way that I would have purpose and connect with other humans. I was a pretty not isolated because I grew up in a very vibrant world, but I was very inner world person, very shy person. And I was working very hard as a young person to figure out what my bridge to the outside world would be. And music obviously started with love of music, but then this dream came which predicted my life.
Do you mind describing it?
I used to have to, in brief, when I'd meet people at, I'd be 22 and in this giant rock band, and I would explain, well, you see, when I was 19, I had a dream about 3-dimensional sound. It was a gift from an alien race or possibly some gods or goddesses that told me that the only way I would be able to survive is if I joined the musical lineage to pass on the power, because music is the only thing that connects us as one, that can unify us as one. I have a song, listen to the song called I Need, I Want, I Will. It's the last track of my first solo album.
I love
where I tell the story of the dream.
Album, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Both of your albums.
It was a bit out of sync with it was still in rock, and it was like when rock was disappearing. But I'm hoping that as rock returns and witchy, rocky things appeal to new generations, they'll find that record. But I Need, I Want, I Will. Pass it on, pass it on. What my takeaway from this dream is there was something knocking really hard. And there's all these other dreams that happened, but I chose 2 at the beginning of my life and then 1 towards the end of my passage through my calling, which was my generation's zeitgeist moment of alternative rock people. And they found me. I did not find them.
Yep.
I found music, and then music all of a sudden brought me to them. And then they plucked me out of obscurity. And by the end of the book, there's another dream that comes once I'm living in the Hollywood Hills and I am living this life that this strange dream life had brought me to. And it was a realization it was time to go. But the arrangement of the book, which people in the book team assure me why people will know I wrote the book, is that it is linear in that I bring people through my origin story, but I have not just dreams interluding, breaking in and out, but also parts of my father's writing and some indulgent interludes of fame. I have very serious storytelling, but then I break in and out of the story, bring you to the subconscious in the dreams, bring you to my father, who's this epic voice and power in my life and dies in this book. And then this celebrity island, this absurdity of these famous people. And I realized only later when I was arranging the book that I was doing it like a songwriter and a bass player, which is that the dynamics of I wanted to drag someone into the nitty gritty of what's on the table, what's the smell of the room, what's the detail of someone's skin or hair. And then all of a sudden you're like brought into this other dimension. So I'm bringing people in and out of dimensions to give them a deeper experience in what is, for a photographer, musician, performer, black and white page is not, that's never been my thing.
It's so hard to take a holographic self and story and try to flatten it and try to make it linear, because a book is by definition a front to back thing.
Exactly.
And we should just emphasize your photographs are throughout the book as well.
Yeah.
You're such an amazing photographer. So in addition to like being introduced to all these great descriptions, you then will show us these beautiful portraits of yourself and a lot of the cast of characters, shall we say, throughout your life. It's a really wonderful experience. More than
great. That's what I want.
Than it is just a read.
I live to experience. I don't live to achieve. I live to, and I wanted to bring readers on that way of living life and experiencing life, but then also tactile, bring them into the places. Yeah. Those photos, there's about 50 or so in there, and that's just the tip of the iceberg of the 10,000 photographs in my photographic archive that I follow up in 6 months with the companion project, which is a color. I only go black and white here. That was my limit. If I only will use black and white photos, and then I explode in 6 months' time next September with my photo book, my 90s rock. So this is my 90s rock memoir, and then the 90s rock photography comes out in September as a companion to a giant traveling museum exhibit that is starting in Toronto. And now I get to really live my dream, because I went to art school and I said no thank you to joining Whole because I was studying photography.
Exactly.
And I was going to be a fine art photographer. And I get to do it 25 years later, which is really my greatest dream come true.
We all get to be a lot of things, though. And something I really love about this book is that we get a sense of all these different gifts that you have, all these different aspects of your personality. And I can relate not to your rock star self, but insofar as being someone who has a lot of interests and a lot of different directions I could go in. And yet it's intuition that's guided me. And it feels like that is what guided you as well. So let's get to you're 19 years old. And in the span of 12 days, you see Whole play for the first time in Montreal. You see the Smashing Pumpkins play. And you meet Courtney Love and Billy Corgan, who are going to become, how would you even classify them? Like your godparents,
I call them my
parents?
grunge parents.
Your
or my
grunge
parents is what I call them in the book.
Yeah.
But I also, so that people realize, this is summer of 1991, and neither even really have their records out. They are playing their first ever tours. And they are playing in front of about 25 people for $1. So yes, catching them who were larger than life already, obviously.
You could just sense that.
I mean, they just were on stage. It was illuminating, both shows, which I bring the readers in very closely into my first experience of these two people who, strangely, it wasn't them who made impressions on me at all. You know, they as individuals didn't stand out. It was, what is this sound? What is this energy? In Billy and the Pumpkins' case, it was the music. And in Whole's case, it was the never seen this before come out of a female-fronted situation that had been illuminating. And they both made impact. And then all of a sudden, I joined both bands.
Your life takes off. And it's really wild because it feels like there's some amount of, I don't know if you would call it like divination or prescience, or like it feels like you had some sense when you had those experiences like, ooh, this is something I need to pay attention to. I mean, you literally meet Billy. You call him your spiritual cowboy. You meet him.
Actually, it's an ex-boyfriend who called him my spiritual fucking cowboy while he threw the magazine across the room at me. Excuse me.
But he's kind of like this, like, I don't know, mystical musical Sherpa of your life.
Well, he's also like the Good Witch of the North or something. He just sort of shows up and he just like literally turns the pumpkin into the carriage, and then I get to like go into Fantasyland until I leave.
But he recognizes something in you early on, and he basically predicts that you're eventually going to play in his band. He also recommends you to play in Courtney's band. Her first bassist leaves. She plays with Mazzy Star, another of my favorite bands. And so there's this vacancy. And
well, it's actually the one that died in between.
Forgive me.
I come into death, everything. I mean, everything is, it's Kristen who dies. She's only in the band for less than a year, and she dies of a tragic heroin overdose. And Kurt dies. The record comes out that week. Kristen dies. There's a band without bass, without husband, and, you know, either basically play or die. So Courtney went on the road really to just survive. Otherwise, she just would have withered. I was replacing death. Prior to even that, the dreams had already predicted all of these strange things. But mainly my way of living and seeing, which I described that these dreams did for me, was change the way I see life, that there is life beyond here and there are larger forces guiding you, pushing you, even if they're hard and difficult and dangerous, tricksters or demons, they're coming and they're pushing you and you've got to follow and don't resist. A lot of it was just me following because I listened and I knew it was right, even though it intellectually, even when I said no to the invitation to join Whole, it was when I was in the room, in the space with the women that I realized this was beyond music, beyond this lifetime. This is about women working together to support each other, and that these women not only needed a bass player, but they needed light and they needed support. And there was a small girl with them, and the husband had abandoned the wild woman and the little girl and the drummer who became my best friend, Patty.
Yeah.
I ended up realizing I had no choice. This was a woman calling. This is like I am to do this. And what's interesting is right as I am timed out, I must leave. It just sort of like hits me like a lightning bolt. It's time to go.
Yeah.
Is when the bass player for the Pumpkins, Darcy, goes MIA and she disappears. As Billy said when I answered the phone, and I hadn't talked to him in a couple of years, stars have aligned. It's time to join my band. And it really had been right as I decided it was time to leave Whole. And I said, no, I just was on the road for a year. I'm really tired. I want to But then I realized, no, this is it. This is still part of the riddle. This is part of these people, this constellation of people who have been just brought to me, who are undeniable in power, undeniable in kismet, strange, and many people who know my story in music. But it's very clear, even for those who don't, is that I worked very hard on this to clearly illustrate almost like a fairy tale. My book is the life that I experienced in music was all incredibly Cinderella, overnight, magical, like a drop beer bottle, like a broken glass slipper. It just all these tiny, tiny, tiny little things delivered me to a, 1 in a million opportunity where you're traveling the world with nomads.
But you also have the sensitivity to recognize that and pay attention to it, and the courage to say yes. It's very like Joseph Campbell, hero's journey. You get the call, and at first you refuse the call, and then you go into the underworld, but it's all for the purpose of then bringing this magic and these lessons back to the community, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And you do that a number of times. I mean, you have a number of descents, if you will. And it's funny to...
continuing to have them.
Yes. And who doesn't? But it really strikes me as interesting that you keep being attracted to a certain kind of energy, this Dionysian, fiery, maybe uncontrollable to some degree energy. And you seem to be its counterpoint. You describe yourself in the book as at first shy, introspective, cool. When you compare your energy to Courtney's energy, it feels very like Dionysian and Apollonian. You're celestial and angelic and light and bright. And she's very chthonic and fiery and some might say diabolical. I would not, but some really classified her that way.
Many treated her like she was a demon and burned her at the stake.
Yeah.
The more common is virgin whore, good girl, bad girl. That was definitely why we fit so well together, as we were opposites and there was a deep complement to each other and continue to be. Our relationship is more rich than ever at this moment in our lives. And it is wild how perfectly we fit in our absolute differences. Yeah, and I think that helps, on a public stage. It's playing something out for people, just like my observation of astrology or mythology. Really, you're looking at it to be able to inform very basic energetic things that happen anywhere, in any family dynamic, in any friendship dynamic, in any creative journey. These are just archetypes to help guide us. And these were all based on humans creating incredible storylines for us now, still thousands of years later, understand what our kind of innate map. Even if you look at astrology, and I'm a Pisces, so I'm at I'm the last of the zodiac. I've been everywhere already. I'm already done here. I'm like next life, moving on.
And we're in your season right now.
I know, and it comes out on my birthday, St. Patrick's Day. And within my understanding, even of my own Piscean self, Other than, yes, I have lots of fire, which is why I'm not a drug addict and why, I always say if I didn't have Leo rising and Aries moon, I would probably be a heroin addict with many of the people I hung out with. But I have a serious fire that keeps me up and out of the murky drowning. But even within people who are skeptical everywhere of anything, why should we believe in astrology? Even though I'm probably speaking to the preaching to the choir here. But
preaching to the coven.
I always like to say you don't have to believe it. But if you look at this incredible 12-part journey of the baby little Aries who is born in fire and then it evolves and you're in the teenager Taurus, this is just any one of our lives.
Yeah,
this isn't
it's
like
archetypal energies.
This is where and you don't have to reject ancient stories. I'm just all for as many maps as possible because we are living an incredible mystery.
Oh, yes.
So why not just keep turning every rock and understanding and then finding some, in my case, astrology has just always been a really sweet return. And I do not have any active spiritual, esoteric, regular practice reliance. I follow my intuition of when and where I need to do that too. If an astrologer enters my orbit, I will work with them maybe for a year or two, and then I will not do anything for years. And I kind of get back. I really make sure not to overuse any of these available incredible systems, to keep them mysterious and not regulate and not rely on any of these magical properties.
On that note, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. The Witch Wave is brought to you by the Moonbeaming Podcast. Are you a fan of this podcast and looking for more spiritual, feminist, and creativity podcasts to binge? If so, tune into the Moonbeaming Podcast, hosted by Sarah Faith Goddess-Diener, who also is the force behind the Many Moons Planner. The Moonbeaming Podcast is a home for intuitive creators looking to support their lives so that they can create the world that they and we want to live in. Available wherever you listen to your podcasts, tune in for tarot talk, cultural conversations with luminaries around the globe, including yours truly, and the best non-BS, non-bypassy guidance you can get for free. Just type in Moonbeaming into your podcast player, subscribe, and enjoy. The Witch Wave is brought to you by BetterHelp. As we know, witches can be any gender, but they are often women. And it's a lot as women to try to balance our spiritual well-being, our physical well-being, and our emotional well-being. And when I think about the witchy women I admire, many of whom I've had on this show, I think about people who have had to carry a lot of care for their families and their communities overall. And to do this in the context of a world that, let's face it, is often not easy on women, especially witchy women. March includes International Women's Day, and it's wonderful that we take time to celebrate women's strength and progress. But let's also recognize that women deserve some extra support. Between caring for others and managing unseen and often unsung responsibilities, our emotional well-being can be easily overlooked. That's why I'm grateful that I was raised by a magical mom who not only models how to infuse life with art and spirituality, but also how to take care of one's emotional state. And one of the ways she does that, and one of the ways I do that, is that we each go to therapy. Therapy can help create balance, set healthy boundaries, and support overall well-being for everyone, and certainly for women. And now therapy is more accessible than ever with BetterHelp online therapy. BetterHelp therapists work according to a strict code of conduct and are fully licensed in the U.S. And to start, all you have to do is fill out a short questionnaire to help identify your needs and preferences. And with over 12 years of experience and an industry-leading match fulfillment rate, they typically get it right the first time. But if you aren't happy with your match, you can switch to a different therapist at any time from their tailored recommendations. Therapy offers a space for us to take care of ourselves in the way we deserve. Your emotional well-being matters. Find support and feel lighter in therapy. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/witchwave. That's better, HELP.com/witchwave. Hey there. So people are always asking me how they can get more Witchwave, how they can work with me, how they can find magical community. And my answer is join the Witchwave Patreon. There is where you'll get bi-weekly bonus Witchwave Plus episodes, as well as ad-free Witchwave episodes and detailed show notes for all. The Witchwave Patreon is also where I lead a monthly online magical ritual, which you can attend live or watch the recording of at your convenience. And that's available for members at all tiers. And then rewards for some other tiers also include magical merch and contests where you can win Witchly prizes, as well as getting early heads up about my workshops before they sell out, and opportunities to get magical one-on-one guidance from me. And all backers get access to our exclusive digital coven, where you can connect to a community of other wonderful Witchwave witches around the world. So head on over to patreon.com/witchwave and sign up. It's a marvelous way to get more magic in your life and to support the show. Thank you so much. Welcome back to the Witch Wave. So when you're looking at your relationship with Courtney, which has this real duality to it, how do you make sense of what brought the two of you together? And I just want to say for listeners and people watching us, the way you write about your relationship is so beautiful. It's so rich. You have a great admiration, love, respect for her, and you really humanize her in so many ways that I found profoundly moving. And you also show, like, she has such a strong sense of morals. She's a good friend to you. She shows up to your father's funeral in the middle of shooting her film. Like, she writes you beautiful letters.
That, thank goodness, the pack rat in me still had, and they were fading faxes. And I caught them right as they were totally disappearing 20 years later. And then I decided to include her own words in my book because obviously a huge mandate for me in the book was to reframe the demonized woman, that for so many reasons, not just because she deserves it, because she's a pioneering feminist that has been shat on, and her husband's chateau and his tragedy has somehow just ruined her life. I mean, and she didn't ruin her life.
The narrative that people put on her.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable to have watched that closely. The burning of this woman and the media frenzy and the misogyny, it's just unbearable. And even within the chaos, because of course, does she struggle from mental health problems? Of course. Is she an addict? Yes. She's not hidden any of her challenging parts. But more importantly is women who push the envelope, who don't act pretty or nice, who in her case perform an exorcist. I've never seen anyone perform like her. There is no more, still to this day, even with all the amazing pop stars that are women ruling the scene, there is no more visceral, profound pulling of the darkness out of a human in front of thousands. I've never seen it. And I have seen many things. And that alone, to me, is why she should be recognized as a force. And I have one chapter called Warrior Goddess, which is my moment where I want to bring the reader on the stage and what it is like to be 6 feet to the right of that level of, I mean, this is exorcism. This is as powerful as any magical person has ever been, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Watching the audiences be conducted while feeling us, who are our own autonomous people, get into the wave with her. And she conducts the entire thing with energy in a way that is no lesser than any wizard, warrior, anything that I've ever seen in any fantastical movie for children. That is the highest reason why I wanted to reframe her, because that is, I think, why people are afraid of her and tear her down. But then also just on a very, pragmatic women in music, women in art history, the legacy of her and the legacy of the band, which I contributed a nice half a decade of my life to, deserves a better place in history, because it is living in the gutters of everyone just demonizing her and overlooking her absolute remarkableness. In the book, by reframing her in a human way, reminding people that there's reasons why mental health issues and addiction take over people.
And grief, insane
not
grief,
to mention
public grief.
Left alone with small daughter, never loved by her own parents. She always was transparent about coming from not love, coming from horror. And the lack of humanity, the lack of vision in terms of her power, the lack of historic credit that she deserves, but then also just for the good of the long course of history, Hole must be revisited in the history of 90s rock, and then in the history of rock in general, and then in the history of our short 100 years of feminism, like 100 years of just women got to vote, then they got to have a credit card, then they got to maybe divorce and not to get married, and then they got to be in a rock band.
Right.
This is a very short history of women having any rights to be powerful.
Yes.
And then prior to that, in art, all women are muses to the male gaze. And so I've been looking at women through the lens of hundreds of years, not like rock years. This is,
right.
I mean, I studied fine art and art history, and I wanted to know who that woman was that Botticelli painted over and over. And she was a young woman named Simonetta who died of consumption at 25. And I was an 18-year-old trying to uncover everything I could.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I became a photographer, the first act of embodying the future of women was turn the camera on myself, because I am the painter and the muse. I am not going to be relying on an outside person nor a male to categorize me, but I also come from like frontline pioneering best ever woman feminist. My mother,
you do. She's
and my mother
amazing.
just, her mantras were simple. No man will ever define you. A woman must always be able to drive away from a bad situation. It was so clear. And she chose to have me alone. But yes, the bulk of the book is reframing Courtney as a symbol of what we need to continue to correct in both history, but to make a livable future. Because now we live in backwards middle age land, and we are facing threats I could never have imagined in my lifetime.
Yep.
So this seems more relevant than ever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to also talk about you stepping into your own power as a performer, because yes, you hold this beautiful cauldron for Courtney, but throughout the book, I was so moved to witness you realizing that you have your own way of like channeling or tapping into magic and music and connecting to the audience or connecting to the imagined listener in the studio.
Yeah.
And the way you talk about your own archetypes and energies that you embody and evolve into, I just found so fascinating. So can you just talk us through a little bit like the difference between the you in celebrity skin era Hole versus the you that is performing as this more like warrior rock goddess with Smashing Pumpkins? What was that arc like for you?
Yeah, I definitely focus on it in the book because of another thread in the book is also the co-opting corporatization of our scene and of our incredible, authentic, alternative, don't give a shit, don't sell out, cool selves. Everybody, even if people were ambitious, Courtney and Billy in particular, they were ambitious, but they embodied a really like, fuck you, I'm doing it my way. But then when you start, power corrupts and greed controls, and then you start becoming part of the machine. And I had never wanted to be part of the machine. Billy and Courtney are more aware and leaders within how do you navigate the machine. I did not want to be in the machine. I was very upset. But I saw it as the vehicle for this greater good opportunity to shift culture and to be part of radical life experience that would bring me around the world and all of that. But there was a moment where I realized that because of the virgin whore dynamic between Courtney and I, and then the more money there was for fashion shoot or like shoots and videos, all of a sudden there was this whole like glossy feminine expectation of me who had never tweezed my eyebrows. I still don't tweeze my eyebrows. But unfortunately, when you're in that world and you're living in Hollywood and all of a sudden you're doing shoot after shoot and they send stylists and makeup artists, you just like, you play dress up. And so I had subconsciously been basically morphed into the pretty girl in the band to balance the wild woman that's too scary. You know, she used to always say, women will want to be me and boys will want to date Melissa or be with you. Like that was sort of like this is our archetypes. She's the wild one that women will look up to. And people were saying, well, actually, no, there was women who were related to me because that was confusing. You know, so I didn't realize, in fact, now that I've been talking to people about my book and my story, how many people have actually said, oh, you were the one I related to. You were the one that got me to play music. And, you know, because Courtney is profoundly unique and alienating in a cool way. So I bring the reader on the journey of all of a sudden, I am looking at myself in the mirror. I am having my photo taken every day. I do get trapped. And then that's when I allow this incredible arc with Courtney, where I have been painting the clear picture that she's a human and she's damaged, but then she gets help. She gets motivated. She quits drugs. She becomes a Hollywood actress. She gets cleaned up. And she writes me these incredible 2 letters, one at the peak of our feminine power and our success in all the videos and the covers in the magazines. And then one when I tell her I have to leave the band, that my time is up. But yes, the Beauty Manifesto, which is the first letter of hers, it took me 25 years to see how deeply attuned she was with what was happening to me at that time. It was just this beautiful warning of like, you could be trapped by your beauty. You might become, don't be an ice princess. You are a queen. When I read that, I was so already like strangling. I was suffocated by my own role.
Yeah.
And I needed so badly to get out to being like this good girl, pretty girl in the band. It was just like, by the time I went, like I escaped and then went running from the 90s and didn't look back for 20 years. When I found that letter in my archive, she called it.
Yeah.
It was profound. I mean, I realized she had seen something I wasn't capable of seeing at the time. Not because I was blinded by my beauty. It was actually like, I don't trust you. I don't trust anybody. I'm in this like quagmire. I need to get the fuck out of here. I don't trust you. But then years later, 20 years, I do trust her now. I read it, and I actually did when I went to sing on her album last year. She has an incredible new record coming out, and I'm very proud to have sung on it. And in being in the studio, further like cellular change enhanced my memory of how essential it is for my airy fairy siren call to wrap around her growl, like being in the booth and just feeling how natural it is for me to like paint this glassy things around her, like crunchy. It was really wild. I actually didn't realize how much I missed it and how much it's part of my DNA and my destiny. At that session, when we had tea at her house before I left, I had her read me the Beauty Manifesto on the couch. And she, of course, doesn't remember writing it. And to have her read it back to me and, you know, have this female friendship a quarter century later, have the reward of, you were right. And I did blossom. I did not get trapped. Not because you told me so, because I was not made to be trapped. I was not going to get stuck and be someone's wife. I was not going to be stuck and just be someone's bass player. The Smashing Pumpkins was my transition between escaping the very intense abyss of Hole, and I say that with all the love. That was my dark descent, not because of the amount of death and drugs and fame, and mainly the shitstorm that was their world. And then by the time I came to the Pumpkins, it was just this little transition period where I got to become a musician. There was no role to play. These guys had it all down. I didn't have to like be a sidekick. I didn't have to talk on the mic. I didn't even have to do backup vocals. I just was a warrior musician, and it elevated my strength as a musician, but also playing with the boys is a thing, like making it in a boys club, because it was challenging. This was the level of musicianship and rigorous touring. And
you had to learn like 100 songs in just a couple weeks.
Outrageous and amazing. And again, back to, some people, when I do interviews that are more music focused, a lot of like cool, nerdy, like bass player people always ask me, like, wow, you must be like a virtuoso. I'm like, no, I'm not even actually a good bass player. I'm like, okay. It's not that I'm not, I'm actually very simple, but some very muso people have pointed out that it is an innate feeling I have and intuition I have about how songs work.
Yes.
So I don't even think it's not my chops. It's actually whatever this thing is that I like receive the messages. I go follow the signs. I get to these amazing plateaus, and a bass is a listener anyway. It is a glue. It is the connector. And somehow my listening ability and my just following the feeling brings me to the right place. And I managed to learn that huge catalog and do 183 shows in a year and play up to 3 hours a night and change set lists, change song orders, change keys. Just every day was a new battle.
Must have been like, your synapses must have been on fire. Like so stimulating and so badass and so challenging. Wow.
So cool.
I
so
love
great.
it.
I love it.
So amazing.
I love it. I always say that Whole was my degree in humanity and the Pumpkins was my degree in music. And I got to do both. And the beautiful human lessons of Whole and then the musicianship of the Pumpkins granted me a great passageway to the next decade of my life, where I made my own records. Yeah.
Which are so incredible. Listen to Melissa's solo albums, please. They're so fucking good. Tell me about this idea you have of soul constellations, because by my calculations, there's this cast of characters. It's you, Billy Corgan, Courtney Love, Dave Grohl, Kurt Cobain. And a lazy writer might be like, oh, it's a love triangle or a love pentagram because there's, dating and kissing and all the things. I sound like I'm in second grade. There's some smooching and canoodling.
Yes,
But also you're all like inspiring each other. You're all on
challenging each other.
Yeah.
There's like wars happening.
Yes.
Yeah.
What do you make of this soul constellation idea? Do you feel like you were all destined to know each other?
There's like
how do you think about
question. I mean, yes, I use the word soul constellations in this particular chapter, which is called Trapped in Mythological Webs and Shadows, where I can't help but, by the end of the book, for the reader, because I really do try to show, not tell. I'm showing everybody the thing. And then once in a while, I step out of you're in the room with me and the band is playing and these crazy things are happening, orgasms and drugs. But then I step out every once in a while. And in that chapter, I really need to step back and show my level of processing as an avid diary keeper and photographer. I was documenting what I knew was mysteriously epic. Like I could tell I'm not going to understand this until later. All of these things are happening so quickly. And, how I fell in love with the drummer of her dead husband right as I'm leaving to join her other ex-boyfriend's band. Yes, it's incestuous music, but not everyone else did that, like, I don't know. It just, for some reason, those two bands, and then add the girl band, the Pumpkins and Nirvana, I guess, I don't follow grunge rock history, but apparently there's like a rivalry. I don't even care. But then there's this woman who did date Billy and married Kurt. And then there's this bass player and this drummer. I have no choice but to believe.
You and Dave Grohl were together for how long?
Yeah, for 2 years, and it was right as I left Whole because I never could have, they were arch enemies. And part of that, it could be, is this like attraction, this like sort of the drama. But no, I did not want to get involved with an arch enemy but it happened. It was like these pushing.
Arch enemy of Courtney, not of yours, right?
Exactly. I avoided him because I didn't know him. I just knew him to be part of the other camp and all this, avoid the other camp because there's so much negativity and unresolved pain, I guess. So I have no choice but to believe that we were absolutely sent to each other to learn. And a lot of it has to do with, now in the new world of New Age, everybody's self-reflective of these things. But I think I knew it without any New Age talk, which was, trauma bonding, obviously, right?
Yeah, sure.
And so just like children of alcoholics or addicts. Like, we're gonna be attracted to energy that teaches you hard lessons.
Shadow work.
Yeah, exactly. All of that. But then I guess, so where does the destiny versus like just human energy, shadow work, psychology?
Mm-hmm.
I am still, luckily, figuring it out. I've tried to approach it in this book of like, from this perspective, this is what I see happening. In my case, because of these dreams that I had demons and visions tell me things about people I would meet and should be with.
Yes.
So this is not like normal. I met this guy at a bar and I kind of felt something. This is like abnormal. So that's why I have to believe it's from past lives and from unfinished business from other times together.
And you were not raised with a sense
Beyond.
of mysticism.
No,
I mean,
avoided.
Yeah, like you call your parents intellectual atheists, this amazing feminist, creative mom, this father who's a bon vivant journalist.
Yeah.
But it seems like there's not a lot of spirituality.
Zero. I was starving.
Yeah.
Starving.
I mean, you have a grandma who was...
She's a mystical angel whisperer. So there was exposure, but she was around much less. But she did make an impact. She ended up dying at 101 on St. Patrick's Day, on my birthday, and passing the baton. So I have no doubt that she is...
guiding
the realm.
you.
She's the portal to the thing. And then for next time, for my next book, when I'm here in a few years, I will explain much deeper things about that in and around a saint that is in our DNA that my grandmother, I explain in the book, but this will be in the next book. I will really uncover much more of my father apparently is a reincarnation of a saint that we're related to, a 1,000-year-old saint. And all of these things play out because it played out in him. He ended up living to the T this story of this saint from his family's homeland of Switzerland. And he did not want to. Something was pushing him. And he had a very dramatic and epic life, died way too young, burned all candles at all ends. And I 100% believe it's because of this weird pressure from the other side. He had something in him, and it's in me too, and it's in my grandmother.
Do you have a sense of him now? There's a beautiful part in the book where you know that Nick, your dad, is dying, and you say, how will I know once you've crossed over that you're still around? And he says, I'm going to knock. Do you get knocks from him sometimes, whether literally or metaphorically?
Yes. The pain of his death and the way he left very angry, left the world very angry, very disappointed in himself. And I did shut down for a long time, which is, the mystery of grief. I just was not prepared to really open up to my father really until I wrote this book. And then I've done some work with some mediums and kind of channeling, opening. And now, even just once in a while, speaking to him out loud has helped me feel him near, but also I think he wrote this book with me. My father was a prolific writer who I feature his work in my book, but there's no question. It makes no sense. I wrote this book all from memory, all by myself. I have 200 pages I had to cut. It came out like a downpour. I could not get it out fast enough. And my father's gift of writing, he was a columnist for the Montreal Gazette. He started as a high school dropout copy boy and wrote till he died about dying. So he went his entire life course writing 3 days a week about his city, his people, a trip he and I went on, the drug dealer that he helped, bail out of jail, the nuns who needed, to fix the convent driveway.
And he wrote about you so proudly.
Yes, and so I grew up in the public eye with this incredible storyteller father, but my entire life was narrated by this man, and my entire city was narrated. So I grew up in like a fairy tale of this city that my father, who was eternal bachelor other than this brief second with my mother, the city was his muse, the city was his wife, the city was his love, and he just spoke to it like to the public just 3 days a week. So many people I know still alive now to this day. Their childhood or their adulthood or the 70s and 80s and 90s were dictated by this man. And he had a radio show and a TV show. And he was a downtown politician. He ran downtown. The man was the voice of this city. And the city is a poetic city. And the city is a messy, complicated,
romantic,
fucked up city. It's not like a clean city. And my father was not a clean. He was a wreck in a great, beautiful way, a really broken poet. He started as a beatnik poet, alcoholic, just very visceral guy, on par with Courtney and any great rock star.
I mean,
like truly. that's why it was easy for me to be around these kinds of people. My father walked into a room and he commanded. His energy was so intense. And somehow, with that visceral energy mixed with his gift of talking and storytelling, I, through osmosis, channeled my father for this book.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
Like a collaboration with him.
Definitely.
On that note, we're going to take another quick break, and we'll be right back. This episode of The Witch Wave is brought to you by Blessed Be Magic Jewelry. I've been noticing something lately, especially in the conversations we have here on The Witch Wave, which is that so many of you are drawn to magic that's subtle, magic that's intentional, integrated into daily life, and deeply personal. And that's why I want to share Blessed Be Magic. They craft minimalist, elevated jewelry for modern witches. These are beautiful pieces inspired by powerful symbolism made to be worn every day. Think witchcraft and goddess charms, talismans, and sacred symbols that feel quietly powerful. Not costumey, not loud, just intentional. And I think listeners here on The Witch Wave will really appreciate that because so much of what we explore on this show is about weaving magic into the ordinary, into our creativity, and into living with purpose and presence. And Blessed Be Magic's jewelry really supports that way of living. And what also stands out to me is how the witchcraft community raves about their pieces. They have over 3,000 five-star reviews, and again, witches say that these are the pieces they never take off. Jewelry they wear to ritual, to work, and everywhere in between. You can visit blessedbemagic.com to explore jewelry made to honor your path. That's Blessed Be Magic, spelled MAGICK.com, and use code WITCHWAVE for 15% off your first order. This episode of The Witch Wave is brought to you by Mithras Candle, my favorite. As we move through the quiet heart of winter toward the first whispers of Imbolc, our rituals require a steady, gentle radiance. For 10 years, my mythic and scientific friends in Philadelphia have been handcrafting that exact kind of radiant light at Mithras Candle. Our ancestors held beeswax as sacred. They use the finest beeswax, creating hand-dipped Byzantine pillars that carry a natural honey floral aroma, a heavenly scent like a bridge between the physical and the ethereal. These are gorgeous tools made with soul, designed to carry your intentions exactly where they are needed. 2026 is a milestone year for Mithras, and they're celebrating with some truly transcendent offerings and collaborations, including the return of the White and Luxe Aurea line of 24-karat gold and platinum leaf angel magic candles. And I was sent some of these, and they are so beautiful. And for those looking toward the turning of the wheel, keep your eyes peeled for a special new candle release specifically for spring, a fresh glow for a new season. Ready to illuminate your space with arcane luxury? Visit mithrascandle.com and use offer code WITCHWAVE for 26% off your first order. That's M as in magic, ITHRAS candle.com. Light the flame and enlighten your world. Hi, Witch Wavers. I know, and you know, you want some Witch Wave merch. And our print-on-demand merch site is now available through Dashery. So if you want to get different variations of our gorgeous Witchwave logo designed by Thunderwing, or our Witches Are the Future catchphrase designed by Lara Antal, printed on everything from t-shirts, mugs, totes, stickers, magnets, notebooks, you name it, you can. Shirts come in different styles and fabrics and are available in sizes small through 5XL, so you can order whatever you'll feel you're most comfortable and most magical in. So head on over to witchwave.dashery.com. That's witchwave.dashery.com, or you can click the Dashery link in the Witchwave shop over at witchwavepodcast.com/shop. Welcome back to the Witchwave. I want to talk, and I know we only have a little bit of time left, but I want to make sure we talk about your idea of what magic is. Like, it's clear you believe in it. It's clear that music is magic or magical for you. How do you think about magic in your life?
Yeah. Originally, the book was going to be called Magic, Music, and Death. And it's the acts instead, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. I mean, it really didn't even become a reoccurring word. I always had hippie, trippy, psychedelic cosmology vibe. And I actually used to speak almost like, I mean, in my teens, I don't even know if people could have straight conversations with me. I was just weaving.
I'm picturing you
through.
like Janice from the Muppets, like the hippie, man in the band.
I mean, I was not peace love, though. I had a
Yeah.
serious aloofness. So I was not like, I love you. No, I was very aloof and hard to maybe penetrate. But before even the dreams, I mean, in middle school, I was like doing people's readings in like M&M's. Smarties.
I know.
Thank you.
I wrote in the book,
Yeah.
Candymancy.
It's just like, but I don't know where
this
any of that
divination
was-
with like essentially M&Ms for your
I don't know where that came
classmates.
from. You know,
Yeah.
this was all happening. It just has always been there. And I think it took me to way later to even identify, oh, is this magical rituals? Is this, you know, when those dreams came when I was 19, I wished they hadn't. I'm like, I don't want this. I do not want.
Yeah.
So definitely there's some kind of intuitive gift channeling something. So the magic thing, which is really just the most general word for mystery and the unknown, you know, the unknown is more what I'm into. I mean, I really just am into the endless unknown of it all. That to me gets me excited. And, you know, my earliest moment where I describe in the book when I was 12 years old, looking up at the sky and the stars and understanding infinity for the first time. And it was the portal to the better place for me. The moment I fathomed the forever, I like became myself. And I used to say, sometimes more in like a rock kind of thing, like I don't trust people who can't do psychedelics. You're either someone who can do psychedelics or you're not. And I am one who can. In the less drug-oriented one, it is either you're afraid of infinity or you embrace infinity. And I embrace it. It embraced me when I was 12 and it just sort of ushered me on my way. It's really just, I am not afraid of death. I am not afraid of the unknown. I absolutely praise existence and don't claim to know anything. I like the journey of discovering it.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, an ongoing dialogue with, you know, people to explain what my evolving way of explaining what I've always just wanted, which is unfolding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does the word witch resonate for you?
I mean, yes, because again, I lived in a rock and roll mythology world. I started a Black Sabbath cover band for a second after I left the Pumpkins because I was trying to find the performer in me. And I always say Ozzy was the greatest teacher, you know, witch in me because Ozzy has more witch and I have more wizard. You know, I've always used those as female male counterpoints that like my favorite place where rock heroes meet, like an Ozzy and a me, is that I am summoning the wizard, he is summoning the witch, and we meet in the middle. And so I use it more in rock
archetypes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whereas I have tons of books on witchcraft and paganism. I'm a real beer endurer. I don't do a lot of reading and research.
Yeah.
I have it around me and I see even just spines of books make me happy. Like I like just seeing it as signs and symbols and knowing that there's stories in there that have been written by people who have researched and thought about this.
Yeah.
If you had to make a character in a cartoon of me, am I a witch? Probably. But I mean, I'm more of a...
I mean, clearly.
I don't know, a witch in a beret. I don't know what.
Yeah.
My second solo record, Out of Our Minds, there's a fantasy film that goes with it, and I am a witch in it. A black-eyed, black-haired, flying witch. And I remember having an argument about whether witches are beautiful or not, with like creating the costume for the witch. And I said, of course they're beautiful. I'm like, oh, the thing about the wart in the nose, and which is also cool because that's the crone later who had to, by the way, live in the woods because people would have killed her.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course she's living in the woods, not tweezing her eyebrows because she'd be dead.
Yeah.
So they're beautiful because of the power inside, regardless of what they're looking like. And yes, are they like wearing capes to hide and keep warm because they're living in a bush?
Yeah.
In a cave, yes.
Yeah.
The visuals depend what era you're living in. Yeah.
That makes sense with me.
Yeah.
There's so many questions that I haven't gotten to, Melissa, and I want to be conscious of time.
Okay.
So we just have a couple minutes left.
Okay.
I want to make sure that our listeners and our viewers really have like whatever final message you want to give them, whether that's about music or creativity, power, whatever you feel like you want to make sure you get across.
Yeah.
Because as you said at the top of the show, talking about this side of yourself and honoring it feels really important to you right now. So what do you want to make sure is expressed in our last few minutes
it's very
together?
important in the world right now because we are clearly entering a new era, a new dawn. Everybody knows this, you know, whether you're looking at politics or weather or stars. The tectonic shifts of humanity and society are undeniable. And so on a most common, what is my mandate? Like, why am I going out now with this book? We've described why I had to do it for myself at this time, but I'm a mother of a 14-year-old girl. I dedicate the book to her and all the girls, and really it's for the future. It's a template of what those who lived in the last analog decade looked like, lived like, felt like, because there's a few kind of priorities. One is the beware of tech. Beyond the algorithm and the tech hideous greed monsters who are trying to control and mine everything about us. Beyond that, it's the way that we are wiring our existence and the way that we experience. We're becoming cyborgs, clearly, you know, and that's part of the plan. This will be an easy way for people to be controlled and monetized.
Yes, they dehumanize
but
us.
So back like the witch who's living in the cave, like we will have to at a certain point in coming generations and including starting kind of this tipping point is, are you an analog human or are you going to enter this transhuman moment? I am a human. I am here to absolutely advocate for analog life and that if we don't fight for it, so beyond women, beyond magic, analog life is crucial to keep the magic, but the joy of being alive. If we lose and become the filter between experience and us is a screen or a algorithm or whatever that thing is, even if it's in our brain, not a screen. So at this point, we're looking at screens, but later it will be in our brains, just chips. We will have lost the connection to the thousands of years of mystery and unknown, and we will lock ourselves into an actual like X's and O's or O's and Y's or whatever the fuck that thing is, like computer coding
Ones
is.
and zeros.
We're fucked. The magic is the analog and it is within us. So I know that we can do it. You're doing it. I'm doing it.
Yep.
You can do it. But it's being an advocate for it. And also while acknowledging that we have to fight to keep that alive and protect our children and talk about it all the time, acknowledging that it's going to be hard to do and that we're up against an inevitable takeover. Whether the population gets split 50-50 or there's wars, or I have no idea what's going to happen. That's the mystery and the beauty of the unknown world. But as it starts going in that direction, and the humans who have remained trying to be human, the life that which we lead will look so different, and the world that we occupy will be so different that I have no doubt that a much deeper esoteric sense of human way of understanding, and it could be astrology, it can be meditation, it doesn't matter. You're going to have to find a deep connector to the beyond planet Earth because planet Earth is being raped and pillaged, and it will be harder and harder to live here. And to be able to live here in peace and with joy, you will have to give over to a higher power. There is no question in my mind. Even when I see the darkest hour of where we could be heading with machines and war, of course. So there's greed and war happening at the same time as control and machines.
I know. Well, it's all the same.
I am already at that other beyond point where I understand, and I used to have visions of it as a kid, and even in some of those dreams I had when I was 19, they were all post-apocalyptic landscapes. It was all unlivable. I've been seeing this my whole life. And in the unlivable place of Earth, like the way that it could become, even within that, I have complete faith in the ability to transcend that unlivable hell, to just look up at the sky and understand the grandiosity of existence. And even if our lives ended up, there's people dying in wars right now, and they're having to find their way. War, it comes in cycles, and we are in a war with ourselves, clearly.
Yeah. But don't you think that music and art and all of these forms of expression is like such a lifeline?
100%, because of the channeling of it, because we all know any writer, painter, musician, anyone who is not a trained, person who goes to school for these things. You can go to school and create craft enhancement, but the creation that is made from pulling from the ether, and any musician, even the most talented one, will say there's something that just falls from somewhere that then just goes through your fingertips.
Yes.
You can't, yes, you can, I guess, make music in other ways, and people probably do, and AI will do it for you. But I don't, and most of all the magical people I've been around don't. They just create from it coming. And that is the connector. And then the receiver, the audience, whether it's of the book or of the music or of the painting, performance, they get to replenish, they get to eat, suck on the magic. It's like so cool. Yeah. It is so cool. It's bees pollinating, it's honey making. It is just, yes, of course, music and art, but I've been only in music and art my whole life. I was so lucky that my mother sent me to an experimental art school at 6 years old, and I've just only ever known this, and it worked for me.
Yeah.
I don't know that I could have worked very well in the big system of life.
Yeah.
It wouldn't
you saying it worked for me is like the understatement of the year, but I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I could talk to you for hours more. You actually have to go. Before you do, everybody needs to pick up a copy of your new book, Even the Good Girls Will Cry. It is so fantastic. Your photo book is coming out, you said 6 months later, so September. Of course, you run, we didn't even get to Basilica Hudson, this incredible arts and event space.
Upstate New York.
Yep, in Hudson, New York. Is there anything else? Yeah. Is there anything else you want to make sure that people know that you're up to or about to be up to before you flit into the night?
No, that just 2026, I'm grateful for this resurrection after 15 years of hibernation, becoming a mother, starting an art center, going within and serving a small community. Coming back out in 2026 as an author and a photographer, I feel blessed beyond blessed. My creative world has worked for me. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be talking to people about what something as simple as following your dreams can bring you to. I have had an absolute life of fantasy, really, because the dreams and the music brought me there. I have no other explanation, and I feel incredibly, incredibly grateful. And I want to share the possibility of dreams coming true with everybody. Yeah.
Well, I am so grateful to talk to you. You're the fucking coolest and so magical. So thank you so much for being here. It was such a pleasure.
Having a show like this and opening the dialogue beyond the earthly politics of academic reality.
That's a good note to end on. Thank you so much, Melissa.
Pleasure.
That's it for the show. Thank you again to Melissa Maur for sharing her musical magic with me. Do you have questions, feedback, need some witchly advice, or just want to share something magical that happened to you recently? Drop us an email or a voice memo over at witchwavepodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, and you just might make it on the Witch Wire. Please check out the video of my conversation with today's guest and prior guests over at my YouTube channel @Phantasmophile, and please like and subscribe. The Witch Wave is a Phantasmophile production, written and produced by me, Pam Grossman. We are 100% independently run and proud of it. This episode was recorded and edited by Josh Wilcox and/or Walter Nordquist and myself. Our theme music is the song Hand and I by Lycanthia. Our new Witchwave logo was designed by Thunderwing. Special thanks go to Matt Freeman, Laura Antal, and Cece Pascal. Please pick up my books Magic Maker and Waking the Witch, or the Witchcraft volume I co-edited for Taschen's Library of Esoterica series. And if you want more Witchwave, or you would just like to support the show, please join us over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/witchwave. Thank you so much for listening. Witches are the future. I'll catch you next time on The Witchwave.